high seas treaty, which becomes extremely important, especially if you see the environment and the ecology part and even the economy part. So, this treaty is formally known as the Biodiversity Beyond National Jurisdiction Agreement. Hello and welcome back to Prep Alpine, the next generation UPSC institution. We are continuing with our high yield UPSC series where we discuss some of the most important topics that have the maximum probability of being asked in your upcoming UPSC prelims and mains examination. These topics are not only important for the exam but also important to get over a conceptual clarity of each of these complex concepts so that even the bits and nuances of these topics are clear. And today's topic is one of those. So, the topic for today is High Seas Treaty, which becomes extremely important if I say from GS2, that is the international relations perspective, which is quite understood. But apart from this, it is also important from the GS3 perspective, especially if you see the environment and the ecology part and even the economy part. So, let us start. So, picture a scenario where you imagine that almost half of the earth, or more than half of the earth, was not governed by any law until now. That is, the biodiversity, the animals, the plant species, and the coral reefs, etc., that are located in the oceans, the half that I was talking about, were not governed by any treaty until now except a few things. And this is where the High Seas Treaty comes into picture. So, this treaty is formally known as the Biodiversity Beyond National Jurisdiction Agreement, and it has recently come into force. You tell me in the comments which is the recent country that has signed, after which this treaty has come into force from January 2026. So before this, mostly the ocean governance was done from UN Clause 1982, which is the UN Convention on the Laws of the Seas, and it was signed in 1982. But this UN clause did not talk about biodiversity, that is, the plant species that are located in the oceans, the animal species that are located in the oceans, the coral reefs, etc. They had no origin or no talks in the UN clause. And especially current scenario, if we look at the current scenario of the Anthropocene era, where we talk about climate change, we talk about global sea level rise, we talk about rising ocean temperatures, then global biodiversity becomes very, very important though of those located in the oceans. So this is where this treaty becomes very, very important. So let us understand why this treaty was important, especially when UN clause already existed. So first of all, the ecological wealth was unprotected. Secondly, escalating anthropogenic pressure we have, industrial scale overfishing, plastic and chemical pollution, proposed deep sea mining projects. Even India is in one of the missions. Please mention in the comments which is the mission of India that is associated with deep sea mining. Apart from this we see warming, acidification, eutrophication, deoxygenation, that is the loss of biological oxygen demand of the ocean. So all these things have led to this treaty. And one more important thing that is important from the sustainable development perspective is the absence of benefit sharing norms. So the developed countries had technologies for using the resources of the sea, but the developing countries had no access. So this created even a more bigger wealth gap between the developed and the developing countries. And the BBNJ emerges to fulfill this gap and move towards the goal of sustainable development. So now let us understand what are the core objectives, which is very important for your mains. So first we will do conservation and sustainable use of marine biodiversity. Secondly, we will equitably share benefits that have come from marine genetic resources. For example, if India and China both share a sea, then the benefit of this area, that if any resource is extracted or anything that comes from here, that will be equitably shared by both the countries. Or even this is important for those countries located in the global south that have very less technology or that are very less developed. Then we will declare marine protected areas in high seas, which you can imagine as national parks associated in the seas. Then we'll have mandatory environmental impact assessments like EIAs that occur on the land. Similarly, we will have EIAs in the oceans before any project related to deep sea mining or any exploration. Such EIAs will be conducted. And lastly, there will be capacity building and technology transfer. And this is not just a technical or an environmental thing, but it also involves ethical and legal foundations, which is why this topic also becomes important from GS4 perspective. So it involves two core principles. The first principle is principle of common heritage of humankind, that the oceans are a common heritage of humankind. No country has a monopoly to it, and benefits should be equitably shared. And exploitation should not jeopardize the future generations, which I must tell you is known as intergenerational equity. And UPSC has already asked questions on intergenerational equity. Second principle is freedom of the high seas. We often see that when we talk about the Indo-Pacific, both India and America often say that there should be freedom of the high seas, that whoever moves, there should be freedom of movement. The high seas were governed by freedom-based norms permitting open access to navigation, fishing, and research. But due to this, we have seen that there is a problem that has emerged, that is tragedy of the commons. Developed countries come, they explore, they extract everything, and then they go back. But the people who are living over there have to face the problems. So this treaty emerges as a balancing act. It does not curtail your freedoms, but it creates a balance. It regulates it. Freedom does not become an excuse for ecological harm, and common heritage becomes a practical, enforceable norm. But all said and done, this treaty has been signed, but implementation remains a challenge, especially when important countries like USA, China, Russia all have not signed this treaty, considering that they are very important nations of the geopolitical world. So, implementation becomes a challenge. Then there are legal ambiguities and competing norms. We also have an absence of concrete benefit sharing formula. You are saying that you are going to share the benefits equitably among the countries, but there needs to be a formula. Suppose a country that is using all its technology, manpower, and everything. So, how will that country be benefited? How will the country where the ocean is closely located be benefited? Everything has to be clearly mentioned. Then we see that there are institutional overlaps and turf conflicts. There are already institutions like the International Seabed Authority that regulates the deep sea mining. Other than that, we have regional fisheries management operations. So there are overlapping mandates which need to be solved. Then we have monitoring, enforcement, and surveillance gaps. The satellite tracking system, AI-based navigation, or joint patrol system, or the scientific data repositories, these are all available with developed countries. But developing countries do not have this. So again, we'll have a gap between them. And lastly, we are seeing that climate change is something that is continuously happening, and due to this many things are dynamically evolving over the world. But all said and done, this treaty is still a milestone because it is the first legally binding framework for biodiversity in the areas beyond national jurisdiction, especially if we say that the areas which were until now left unregulated by the UN clause. So it becomes extremely important. There can be a statement in your prelims exam saying that this is the first legally binding treaty. Then it strengthens collective stewardship towards global commons. It advances the SDG 14, the Sustainable Development Goal number 14, which says life below water. It reimagines the high seas as ecological spaces, not just economical spaces, but also ecological spaces. But the way forward is that we need clear, transparent benefit sharing mechanism. We must ensure universal participation. We must harmonize global institutions, strengthen capacities of developing nations, enhance monitoring and compliance systems, and integrate with climate and biodiversity regimes. Only then can the principle of equity, cooperation, and sustainable development, which are one of the most important goals of this treaty, can be achieved. So that's it for this video. If you want more such content, please subscribe to the channel and keep watching Prep Alpine. Thank you.